Oh my goodness gracious. How are you on this Monday? It's IB Nation
Cold.
Sports Talk. We're up. We are rolling. You're cold. Is that what you said?
Very cold.
Well, if you paid your bills on time, you'd have heat,
Oh, I just don't turn the heat on.
Oh, the miser, Jesse Stiers out of Cleveland, Ohio, ladies and gentlemen. Well, glad to have everyone with us tonight. I see Ryan Roberts is in the house. I see Tommy Guns is in the house. Joe Allen is in the house. DK. Who else? I don't see Salty. I think that I saw David Carpenter was one of the first. He's been like sitting here waiting. I hope that he didn't fall asleep. Maybe he did fall asleep and he put his alarm on to wake up in time. Glad to have everybody in the house here tonight. Not like there's anything to talk about today or anything.
I feel like every time I look around, there's something new to talk about.
Well,
it's hard to get any work done because I feel like every time I look up, there's something coming out.
As of right now, the roster as we know it remains intact. Marcus Freeman did a media call today with the Sun Bowl people, and we'll hear some of those comments coming up here in a little bit. But one of the things he did say on the subject of opt-outs is he knows who's playing, he knows who's not. He's going to let the guys who are going to be opting out and whatever else make their own announcements over the course of the next few days. That does include Sam Hartman, whom he was asked specifically about. And, you know, again, like we don't like to get into, because like we kind of take that same tact, and we talked about it last week. You know, there's different things floating around about different players in terms of what they're going to do with their future. And the policy from the head man on down here at Irish Breakdown is to let the players make their own announcements. And then at that point, we will, you know, react and talk about what impact that has on Notre Dame and so on and so forth. But we don't like to sort of speculate on the rumors that are floating out there. We let the players make their own announcements, then we'll discuss it. That's kind of how we go. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I heard that there was a lot of reading between the lines today at Marcus Freeman's press conference.
There was a little reading between the lines. And we'll get to that. He talked Chansi Stuckey. He was asked about Chris Tyree and Rico Flores. So we're saving that for rapid fire. We've got a lot of other things to get to in the meantime before rapid fire. We've got comments coming in fast and furious and everything else. And Mark, little super chat towards Jesse's heating bill. I mean, a little super chat, but thank you nonetheless.
I appreciate that.
Anthony with a little bit more for the new server on the IB board. I mean, that's been the crazy thing. I don't know how much you've tried to go to the premium board in the last few days, Jess, but like over the last week with all this news, you know, fast and furiously dropping, people try to go to the message boards, and so many people are trying to go to the message boards at the same time that it's been crashing. So yeah, maybe Brian can apply some of that super chat money toward that, get a little bit more bandwidth for that. I'm kidding, of course, but you know, just saying, I'm sure that a lot of people would like to see that nonetheless. So Notre Dame in the Sun Bowl. How did Notre Dame come to be in the Sun Bowl? And that was kind of the question last night as we were all sitting and waiting, and none of us really knew what was going on. But apparently it started with the fact Florida State gets snubbed, of course, from the college football playoff. And
we'll had a big ripple effect.
Yes, that had a huge ripple effect on everything else that happened in the ACC.
Kind of knocked everyone down a peg, right?
Exactly, because Louisville was expected to be in the Orange Bowl if Florida State had made the playoff. But Florida State gets left out, and it bumps all these ACC teams down a slot because there's all these different slots. And of course, Notre Dame is part of that slotting as well because of its agreement with the ACC. So Clemson ends up in the Gator Bowl. NC State gets the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which was one of Notre Dame's potential landing spots.
See, I hate that, though, not to interrupt you, because NC State and Notre
you are
Dame
interrupting.
played
That's okay.
head-to-head. And Notre Dame won. Sorry, continue.
That's okay. And I think part of this was also the ACC sort of, because of the fact that they're not going to get the revenue from the college football playoff, they were sort of making sure that whatever higher tier, bowl money there was, they were going to try to reap the rewards of that. So they were making sure that their teams got some of the better paying bowls. They ended up out of the ReliaQuest Bowl where Notre Dame was talked about. It ends up being Wisconsin and LSU instead. Louisville gets the Holiday Bowl in part because they avoided a rematch with Kentucky in the Gator Bowl where they could have gone, but Clemson gets that instead. And also, if Notre Dame had gone to the Holiday Bowl, there would have been a rematch with USC. So they avoided that as well. So as a result of all that, Notre Dame gets pushed down a few slots and they end up in the Sun Bowl. And just how excited is the Sun Bowl to have Notre Dame? Well, Colin Deaver is the sports director at KTSM TV, 9 News in El Paso, Texas, where, of course, the Sun Bowl is located, the NBC affiliate there. And he shared some video on his Twitter account. So here is the bowl announcement from the Sun Bowl yesterday. Check this out.
Fortunately, but extremely happy that we don't have our opponent's helmet up here on stage. You want to tell him? You want me to tell him? You want the president to tell him? Well, I'll tell him.
It's not our president to tell him now. Don't mess it up. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
We didn't have a clue that even Notre Dame was going to be part of it. Before they came in 2010, we never thought we ever had a chance at Notre Dame, and we got them. And after that, we said, wow, we got Notre Dame. Never thought we'd get them again, but here they are.
So that is Bernie Olivas. He is the executive director of the Sun Bowl. The man was in tears, Jesse.
I saw
the man
that.
First he is pumping his, raising his hands in the air like he's just won the Super Bowl. And then the man is in tears doing the interview talking about Notre Dame coming to the Sun Bowl for the first time since 2010. What did you think? You sent me this one, actually. I've got some of the other clip as well. What the man is, as Christopher says, the man crying that he's going to get Notre Dame. What did you think about that?
I loved it, to be honest with you. And I wasn't excited about the Sun Bowl until I saw this, because you can see how much of an effect, a program like Notre Dame has on a bowl game. And, they were talking about, 10 years ago, the last time Notre Dame was here, El Paso saw an economic boost afterwards, right? And I mean, the man was crying because they've already sold out today. He knew it was coming. Notre Dame ticket, that game is already sold out after one
Sold
day.
out in less than 24 hours.
So for me, it makes up for the fact that Notre Dame's going to end up playing a crappy opponent. Their coach is gone. They're on their third string quarterback.
They still got a good defense, though.
They do have a good defense.
And the third string quarterback was the starter actually last year.
So I wasn't thrilled about the team and bowl game until that moment. I think that actually made me appreciate a little bit more. If you're not playing in the New Year's Six, or you're not playing in the college football playoff, what does it ultimately really matter? I get it. These bowl games are great and all, but I like that it's having an effect beyond football. And again, it made up for kind of my indifferences about how I feel about the bowl in general.
And it's funny, man, because these bowls, and I'm not just talking about this bowl, and I'm not, trying to poke fun of them, but like they do this once a year, and these are all people obviously who are from the community, and they're like, this is going to have a huge economic impact on the community. And I was in on the 2 Zoom calls today with the 2 coaches, with Marcus Freeman on the one side and with Kifensa, I think is how his name is said, Kifensa Nyson, who's the interim head coach at Oregon State. He was the receivers coach, and we'll talk more about him in a little bit. But like these guys, Bernie Olivas and the other guy who was with him, they're talking about the economic impact that it has on El Paso and the impact on the community and all that kind of stuff. But the funny part is, like, they are not necessarily, we were sitting there waiting for Marcus Freeman's Zoom to start, and one of the local people, I'll just say that he works in TV, they were asking that everyone mute their Zoom, like the media people, as you log in. Mute your Zoom, so you're not coming through. Well, this guy, one of our local guys, is just sitting there literally for like 5 minutes, yap, 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 yap. And then the guy keeps saying, "Can you mute yourself? Can you mute yourself?" And like literally no response. And we're just hearing everything that he was saying, profanity and all,
Oh, wow.
coming through the Zoom. Not like heavy profanity, but there were, like a few S's and, some stuff like that. And
that's funny because we have a morning work call on Mondays and Fridays, and our intern flipped on his camera on accident, and he was laying in bed, and everyone just saw him laying in bed.
One of the hazards of working from home these days, I guess, so. But so it's a little bit interesting because like the way Notre Dame runs, they're like when Marcus Freeman does his Thursday Zoom, and in comparison, the way some of these bowls, because it's not the first bowl that we've done this with, it's a little bit different, sort of the decorum and how things run during these conference calls with the media. So the actual announcement, again, we're going to go back. And this is more from the NBC affiliate KTSM, and Colin Deaver is talking with Bernie, the executive director, Bernie Oliveris, the executive director. I wanted to make sure I had his name right. Bernie Oliveris, the executive director of the Sun Bowl. So this is after that announcement that we just saw. They're standing and they're talking about the fact that Notre Dame is coming to the Sun Bowl.
And according to their contract, if Notre Dame is part of the pool, that's only for them. There'll be a draw. So after a lot of discussions, all 3 bowls wanted to have a shot at Notre Dame. The Pinstripe Bowl actually had to think about it a lot because their Notre Dame is going to play at the beginning of the season at Yankee Stadium. Yeah. So they might not have wanted a repeat team. But after discussion, he said, yes, I want to be part of that pool. And then, like I said, there was a drawing. They put our names in a hat, and their attorney drew the Sun Bowl. So here we are.
You're emotional now. You're emotional when you made the selection. What does this do for the bowl?
Not only what it does for the bowl, but what it does to our city. The last time Notre Dame was here in 2010, it had the greatest economic pick out of our city ever for our bowl game. And that's what I expect. Like I said, that's one of our reasons for having the Sun Bowl, is to have a positive impact here. And I hope, like I said, not only Notre Dame, but it also draws Oregon State fans that they want to see Notre Dame play. So, or play against Notre Dame. So what it does for the city is tremendous, along with what it does for the Sun Bowl as well. So couldn't be happier. I think our TV partner will be happy. I think our title sponsor will be happy, and of course the whole city, I hope, is thrilled.
Just making everybody happy. And again, that's
this was Christmas for them, if we're
being
honest.
Man. It was. Like, he's tears, he's smiling, he's laughing, it's everything else. Like, this could not have worked out better.
I just think it's the part that really struck me is that they literally put Notre Dame in a hat for 3 different bowls.
So that's what I wanted to get to. Like, and he talked about that. It came down to the Sun Bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and the Pinstripe Bowl. all wanted Notre Dame. So they put him in a hat, and he says their attorney, I'm assuming he meant Notre Dame's attorney.
Or Attorney General? I don't know.
Attorney. Drew out of the hat, and Notre Dame is going to the Sun Bowl. So what do you think about the fact that they literally did a blind draw to determine which bowl Notre Dame was going to end up at?
I just think, that and all this shows the presence and national, the national presence that Notre Dame has, right? Like all of those bowls wanted Notre Dame so bad that none of them were willing to take their name out of, contention. They said, we want Notre Dame too. And they couldn't even get to like a gentleman's agreement, understanding, nothing. They had to put them all into a hat,
right,
and draw it out because no one was willing to budge. And you can see why. Look at how this guy reacted. It was like winning the lottery, essentially, at the end of the day.
They didn't even they had all these helmets out on that table when you saw that initial video we were playing. And again, from KTSM, the NBC affiliate in El Paso, they didn't have a Notre Dame helmet because they didn't think that they had any chance of getting Notre Dame. And that came up during the Zoom today. Marcus Freeman told that guy, hey, we're going to bring you a helmet so that you have one next time, after they said that the bowl had sold out. But, Joe, it's a great point. It's laughable. It comes down to drawing a place out of a hat. Shows how unorganized the ACC is. And it's like, that's exactly right. Like you don't have a specific plan for where Notre Dame fits into all this when all this stuff happens. Like you had no contingency, no backup plan, nothing. And it comes down to 3 bowls drawing a name out of a hat. One of them was the Pinstripe Bowl.
I would have hated that one, to be honest with you.
Well, and me too. They're playing Rutgers. Rutgers knew that it was going to the Pinstripe Bowl. The last time Notre Dame, we were at the Pinstripe Bowl 10 years ago.
Yep.
Actually, the last time the only time Notre Dame's played in the Pinstripe Bowl. And it was, kind of a.
It's only cool because you're in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. Personally, yeah. Like if it would have been the Fenway Bowl, maybe that's another thing. But it's not. Yeah, it's like you're at Yankee Stadium. That's the only draw out of the whole thing. You got to get on the subway and go out to the Bronx and all that. It was an experience. We'd never experienced that before. So it was, unique anyway. But there's been all this stuff floating around, still unconfirmed. No one's confirmed it from the Notre Dame side that Notre Dame's going to play Army next year in a Shamrock Series game out at Yankee Stadium. Still unconfirmed, but Mr. Oliveris there. You want me to replay the beginning of that where he talks about that?
Tea.
Like, yeah, he let the cat out of the bag there. Here's the first part of that once again. Listen.
According to their contract, if Notre Dame is part of the pool, that's only for them. There'll be a draw. So after a lot of discussions, all 3 bowls wanted to have a shot at Notre Dame. The Pinstripe Bowl actually had to think about it a lot because their Notre Dame is going to play at the beginning of the season at Yankee Stadium. Yeah. So they might not have wanted a repeat team. But after
So Notre Dame's going to play at Yankee Stadium next year. Mr. Oliveris just confirmed, even though Notre Dame has still not announced that for next year. So start making your plans. Yankee Stadium apparently is happening next year for Notre Dame. So we got that going for us. You excited about that?
I enjoy the Shamrock Series. I wish they were playing someone other than Navy inside Yankee Stadium, but you know,
mean Army.
Sorry, Army. You can only control what you can control, and I'm pretty sure that's the game that's filling in the hole in the schedule, right?
Right.
Army? Yeah.
Right.
So it's
that's
like
the
you
reason
can only,
it came about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
so
the whole
how
in the
much you can
schedule and the
do.
whole thing. Yeah. So again, it's like, these bowl guys, like they have no filter. They just
They're just letting it all out.
That's right. It's like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. Oh well, here it comes. I don't care. We got what we wanted. The Sun Bowl's got Notre Dame. We don't care about anything else. Michael said, by the way, don't think the Sun Bowl has sold out since the last time Notre Dame was there. Like Louisville has their all-time crowd when Notre Dame shows up. I mean, it's absolutely. Right.
Yeah, that's the people. You can say what you want about Notre Dame as an outside media or analysts or whatever, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame's going to draw the biggest crowd, and that's what these bowls know. And for these bowls, it is kind of life changing, just like that. And that's exactly why that guy was so emotional is because of, he saw firsthand what it did 10, 11 years ago. And now he knew exactly what was going to be coming again. So like I said, I'm happy. I'm more happy about the bowl game and maybe the letdowns of the season of not being in the New Year's Six or the playoff. So, some of that is mended by just kind of seeing the response and the joy that other people have that Notre Dame is going to be coming to town.
Yeah. Look, most of these mid to lower tier bowls are loss leaders. Like, they are praying that they can get teams who are hungry enough to get tickets sold. And to get Notre Dame, I mean, that's why these people were so happy. So good for them. Even if it wasn't necessarily what Notre Dame was expecting, I think that the way it comes out, I think everyone has a chance to be really happy about this.
And to be honest with everyone, I wanted that Pop-Tart bowl just because I think Notre Dame
somebody eat the edible Pop-Tart. That's what I want.
Yeah. I think Notre Dame versus Kansas State is just a better game. And I can't remember the last time I saw Notre Dame play. You're just saying that because
if it was Kansas,
KU.
Different story. Kansas State. I mean, I would have liked to see Notre Dame beat down Kansas State. Let's put it that way. Like, other than that, for those who don't know, I'm a University of Kansas alum who grew up part of my childhood in Manhattan, Kansas, where Kansas State is. My sister played basketball at Kansas State, but it's all,
I was going to say,
all Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
My aunt went to Kansas State, so there's a lot of, the rivalry continues. I think Ryan Roberts poses a really great question.
I wanted to just remind John Kristofik, because he said the last time, at least Notre Dame's going to be in a warm weather city. Remember the last time Notre Dame was there, they played Miami, and there was like a snowstorm / ice storm that week. It was like one of the coldest times in recent memory, apparently, in El Paso. So there is that. This Ryan Roberts?
Yeah,
comment?
The ideal taco. I think that's the key question now.
Ideal taco. Now, are we talking about commercialized taco or are we talking about real tacos?
Yeah, I'm going authentic tacos.
Authentic. I'm partial to a good fish taco, but if I'm not having a fish taco, I'm going with like a steak taco is my thing.
Yeah, I like steak.
Vince would just say Taco Bell because like he can,
that's his palate.
Yes, that's the Vince palate. The last time Vince and I went out to eat together, I think it was at Taco Bell, and he bought one of those boxes with
5 different things in it,
full of food. I'm surprised Taco Bell doesn't sponsor one of these bowls someplace, but I mean, Rob Gronkowski's got his own bowl. I'm surprised Taco Bell doesn't have a bowl. Let's see. I wanted to see if there are any others. Marcus Freeman. Joe says, does Freeman really want mayo dumped on him instead of Frosted Flakes? That's something I'm glad we.
I did not want to get into all of that mayo rhetoric of people eating mayo, dumping
disgusting.
mayo. Like,
and
that's
for the
gross.
record, I'm on the Brian Driscoll side of this. I cannot stand mayo. The only mayo I will typically eat is like I will eat a tuna fish sandwich, with
where it's all mixed in.
Miracle Whip is mostly when I but if it's mayo, it's still, I don't like heavy mayo in any of it, or pimento cheese, like with that. But otherwise, no, mayo is not great on a BLT. Mustard is great on a BLT. So I am anti mayo. So what about Oregon State itself, Jess? They're 8-4, but like, you
lost a lot of close games.
Yeah, I mean, they did. They lost to Washington by 2 points. Now they got blown out by Oregon. They lost to Arizona by 3 points. They've got 2 solid wins over Utah, which was number 10 at the time. UCLA was number 18 at the time. Obviously, the biggest difference for them, no DJ Uiagalelei. He has entered the transfer portal, and the head coach, Jonathan Smith, is now at Michigan State. Freshman quarterback Aiden Childs entered the portal as well. He's expected to go with Smith to Washington State. So it's going to be Ben Gulbranson, who was their starting quarterback last year, threw 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last season. But He was their number 3 guy last year. He went from starter to third string this season.
You know, I kind of talked about it in the beginning of the show. I don't think you can get as excited about playing a team that is depleted. And most importantly, they're depleted most by the fact that their head coach packed up and took off at the end of the season. And we're talking about quarterback, but I've heard other positions are likely going to be out against Oregon State. So to me, I know that this came up with Marcus Freeman today. Like, is it if Oregon State is on an interim coach and they're on a third string quarterback, how experimental do you get if you're Notre Dame? Do you let certain guys play? Even if Sam Hartman wants to play, are you bringing him out there knowing that they're on a third string quarterback and back
the other side of it is their defense is mostly intact, and they've got a pretty good defense. They've got the number 15 rushing defense in the nation, only allowing 104 yards a game. Now, other side of that, how dedicated to the run were teams other than Oregon and Washington in the Pac-12? Like how much does that play into that ranking? I'm not trying to take anything away from them. Scoring defense, they were 31st. Total defense, 35th. And the number 57 pass efficiency defense. They had the second most sacks in the Pac-12. They had the third most tackles for loss in the Pac-12, as well as interceptions. So they've got a good defense, and their wide receivers coach, Kafensa Heinsohn, is their interim coach during the bowl, even though they have already hired their new head coach, who is their defensive coordinator, but he is letting Heinsohn run things during the bowl because he wants to focus on recruiting and all that different kind of stuff. So you do have, and that was actually the case. You probably don't remember this, but when Notre Dame played Miami in that Sun Bowl the last time, Miami was in transition. And do you know who was becoming Miami's head coach at that time?
Probably Jimmy Johnson.
No.
All right.
It was one Al Golden.
Oh.
Had just been named head coach, but he, I believe he just watched from the press box as an interim coach, ran things in Miami. And that was the first Al Golden Notre Dame experience in the Sun Bowl in 2010. So Notre Dame back then, Brian Kelly faced another team that was in transition, going from one head coach to the next. So I don't know. I think you've got a good point. Like, there is a lot of flux. Like everyone's worried about Notre Dame's flux, and there is some there. But at the same time, Oregon State is going through even more. Even though I am still a little bit concerned with that defense, especially since we don't really know what we're going to get from Notre Dame offensively yet, because we're still kind of waiting again with exactly who's going to be playing for Notre Dame in that.
Could be without their best running back, their bbest offensive lineman. Obviously, they're pretty thin at wide receiver. Could be without a quarterback. And if you're going against a relatively good, still standing defense, it could make for a pretty good stalemate. And if that's the case, I'm looking at the under already. So could turn into a great defensive battle.
Two really good defenses. That's right. I mean, so there's a lot of questions, I think, on both sides as of right now. But an interesting matchup coming up between Notre Dame and Oregon State in the good old Sun Bowl.
We have lots of time to discuss and preview, because I'm assuming as more stuff kind of comes out in the next week of potential guys who might not play, or maybe even more transfer portal people, like you'll get a better grip about how that game is going to unfold, I think.
Yeah, and again, Marcus Freeman said today he wouldn't say, other than the people who have already entered the transfer portal, he wouldn't say which guys might opt out and that kind of stuff. He said he's going to let those guys make their announcements, and that stuff's going to take place over the course of this week. So I anticipate we're going to start getting some more of that coming up this week that we will be able to talk quite a bit about. So single digit dreams, Irish fan living in BK land. I've already heard the lucky y'all don't play us talk. I'm excited to see the young guys in the bowl game. Great job this season, guys. Thank you. And I do think we're going to see
That's my favorite part of the bowl game.
Yeah.
I like to see those guys out there. It's better to see them now than have preconceived notions about what they are in the spring game in a few months. I think it's a great opportunity. And a lot of people talk about the rule of expanding how many games a redshirt freshman can play and still have eligibility. This is a big reason why, with all these guys hitting the portal, you need to have bodies available for when you lose a good amount to the portal, or maybe guys are sitting out in the NFL. And so for the people who really don't like that rule, I think it's a great this is what I think essentially what it was made for, is for these bowl games and getting, the opportunity to see these guys without having to burn some of their eligibility.
Brock wants to know, can we pick up Cal McCord? I don't think that's going to happen, because I think that they are the guy who's been reported, Riley Leonard from Duke, two different kinds of quarterbacks, definitely. And, I actually saw, someone was talking about that today, one of the national places. I saw some video, I can't remember which one, but video where they were talking about it. And they said, oh, could Notre Dame make a run at Cal McCord? No, everyone is still pretty solid on.
I think the McCord thing is really interesting, because to me, it's very point blank that he played this season for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's what they were most concerned about. And he had the best connection and relationship with Marvin Harrison Jr. And that, I think, was going to be ultimately what propelled Marvin Harrison Jr. the most and their offense. And so to me, it felt like Kyle McCord strictly was the starter this season for that reason, because I think Harrison Jr. is going to be gone. And I just think it's ridiculous that an 11-1 quarterback is going to hit the portal.
It's crazy. It's just nuts.
And I think that if you're a Notre Dame fan,
at Ohio State, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, it kind of felt like panic mode, because a lot of it was coming out really early, and it was all one position group, it felt like. But I mean, there's over 1,000 players in the portal today. Everyone's going through losses right now. I think it's
today's the official opening of the transfer portal, and there's already over 1,000 in there.
And I think that realistically, Notre Dame, as fans, shouldn't feel bad, because again, every like an 11-1 quarterback is hitting the portal, right? And that should tell you alone that you shouldn't feel too bad. And then, looking at Riley Leonard, the FAU or FIU wide receiver that was in over the weekend. Now there's the Clemson wide receiver that's been in. It'll all take care of itself. There's a ton of talent in the portal, and I think Notre Dame will pick out quality players to really help them.
Yes. Still a good chance that Notre Dame sees more players maybe go in the portal this week. Again, we'll let those announcements sort themselves out before we get into any of them, opt-outs and things like that. That's going to be coming soon, and we'll have a more clear picture of what Notre Dame's bowl roster is really going to look like. It is going to be pared down, and people who've been wanting to see more from the young guys, you're going to get to see them. Michael asking, strength and conditioning coach. That was something that came up today in the Zoom, and I mean, it is still a priority. They're still working on it, but nothing has been done as of right now. I think it's pretty safe to say that we will see a new strength and conditioning coach for Notre Dame this offseason. And really the priority for that is, for where they are right now, still in bowl prep with a bowl basically 25 days. So, like 3.5 weeks away at this point. Other priorities right now, but they do obviously want to have that in place, because once the middle of January comes around, that guy's got to be up and ready to go and hit the ground running to lead that offseason strength program going into spring. But as of right now, nothing new. Well, Jesse, you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire, but I just got to give a little disclaimer. I was looking through the emails. I don't think I received it, so it's going to be extra rapid today. I'm on my toes. You didn't get the email?
You didn't?
No.
You sure about that?
I'm pretty sure about it.
Pretty sure, huh? All right. Well,
keep me on my toes.
I think you'll be able to adjust.
I'll shoot from the hip.
I think you'll have plenty that you'll be able to go with. And look, this is another loaded rapid fire, and that's kind of no. See, I knew someone was going to say it. DK
Beefy.
says too early. Trust me, DK. We're going to be here for a while. Like rapid fire is starting, but it's not going to be a rapid ending. Like we're going to be here for a while with rapid fire because we got a lot to talk about. Starting with Mike Brown, the Wisconsin assistant head coach and wide receivers coach, reportedly will be Notre Dame's next wide receivers coach. Not a done deal, but it's trending in that direction. This is a guy who played wide receiver at Liberty, two-time Big South Offensive Player of the Year. He turned that into a 3-year NFL career with Jacksonville and Carolina. Started his coaching career as a graduate assistant at Michigan in 2016. We can forgive him for that. Wide receiver coach at Cincinnati from 2019 through 2021, part of Cincinnati's college football playoff staff. Got the promotion to passing game coordinator / wide receiver coach there in 2022. And then he followed Luke Fickell to Wisconsin last year, where he was the assistant head coach and wide receivers coach. So what do you think about Mike Brown as the potential candidate? I think it's a little, I don't know what the percentages are, but it is not unanimous by any means in the clubhouse in terms of the opinion about Mike Brown.
Yeah, I think that, based off of just some preliminary kind of research, seeing some responses from, other media people, and I've actually seen some responses from, players too, ex-players. I think the thing that I like about Mike Brown the most is he's a guy that Marcus Freeman trusts. And I think that first of all, should go a long way. And I think that that's kind of like this trend that we've been seeing as Marcus Freeman is not going back, but he's kind of picking out some guys from his time at Cincinnati that he really started to develop some relationships with and is comfortable with, their coaching style. And now he's bringing them in as necessary. So I think it's a great hire in that regard. I think you all obviously, want to be able to work work well with your assistants. And I think Mike Brown, I like the youthfulness of him as well. It's another young coach and another guy who is, proven in my opinion, just because of look at what he's been able to develop at Cincinnati in terms of he got 2 wide receivers, he coached up essentially 2 NFL wide receivers. And I think he did that in a very short amount of time. And I think that when those players got to Cincinnati, they were much more raw than what he might encounter at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to bring in just a little bit better of a talent pool at wide receiver. So if Mike Brown can turn maybe some not lower end recruits, but lower recruits than what Notre Dame is getting at wide receiver into NFL wide receivers, I feel like that that is a better situation for him at Notre Dame because the pool is going to be more talented. So a lot of just good initial thoughts, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I think that it's important as well that after this news was making the rounds on social media last night, you had 2 of Notre Dame's top wide receiver commits in this incoming class, Logan Saldana and Cam Williams, both tweeting their approval of this hire. And I know Williams was definitely recruited by Mike Brown at Wisconsin. So, there's like, what does Marcus Freeman said up front? You've got to be a good recruiter, but you also have to be a good developer of talent. And you can argue, I think you can make a case that Brian Kelly and Luke Fickell have each run 2 of the best developmental programs in the nation over the last look at all those guys that are in the NFL from Cincinnati now.
Right. And they weren't getting a bunch of, high 4 and 5 stars at Cincinnati. And you've already he's proven himself with Mike Mickens that you have a guy who can both develop and recruit. You've got a guy in Dylan McCullough who can both develop and recruit. I think this relationship goes a long way because I think that, if anything, that's the biggest knock is like, Marcus Freeman's going back and hiring another one of his buddies, because he got Gino Gaduli.
Yeah, but he's not just hiring any of his buddies.
Yeah, you do have to have people that you can trust. And you mentioned that. And when you look at what happened with the Chansi Stuckey thing, I'll get to more of this in a little bit because in just a second, we're going to have some of Marcus Freeman's comments on Chansi Stuckey. When you look at how all of that blew up, I think it's important to have someone he can trust, someone who he has worked with before, so he has seen day in, day out how he interacts with people. He knows what he is like as a recruiter. He knows what those relationships, are about and how he handles those relationships. And, that was at least from what we have learned, a big part of how this whole thing blew up on Chansi Stuckey. So that is there. The developmental part, I believe, is going to be there based on the track record that Mike Brown has. So overall, I just think that it sounds like it's a really good hire. And, let's face it. I know that there are people who say, well, there are better candidates out there and, this and that and everything else. Like, these position coaches, like, you don't become like a rock star position coach overnight,
Right.
like there's a lot more to it. And like, none of these guys on Marcus Freeman's staff that we have like Dylan McCullough was not a rock star 2 years ago. He was a guy who was a position coach in the NFL and ended up at Indiana. He wanted to get back into coaching college, and look what he's turned into in 2 years here at Notre Dame. Like, ditto with Mike Mickens. He's a rising star in the profession. And I think that Marcus Freeman, based on everything we know about him, you've got to trust that, like, he's got sound judgment because, again, like the Stuckey thing, that wasn't completely his hire. I think we all know that at this point.
I think another thing that, with Brown, that's also intriguing, kind of some stuff that I read is at Liberty, he was also kind of a dual threat quarterback and, wide receiver and stuff. And so when you're working with guys who have a lot of athleticism, which it sounds like Mike Brown did, because again, he was a quarterback, a wide receiver, just wherever he could be utilized, that's something that is good to hear as well, because he can help some of these guys that have a ton of raw athleticism transfer or transform into that wide receiver position. And then the last thing I would say is I just like the little details that you see out of, some of Mike Brown's wide receivers. And I think that was what was missing the most with Stuckey, is the little details, the finer things, how to just the little adjustments here and there. And, a play that comes to mind is when I was kind of looking into Mike Brown is there was a play where Kyle Hamilton got beat into the corner of the end zone by a Cincinnati wide receiver. And during that play, he made, some good adjustments in order to get to the ball. And that's and we're talking about one of the best defenders in the NFL right now. Like, Kyle Hamilton has made himself already into one of the best NFL defenders. And so if you can see a guy, a position group like that do something to beat a top caliber NFL defender, that's something you should feel good about.
Yep. Okay, so the other side of that, Marcus Freeman in that media call with the Sun Bowl today fielded a lot of different questions. And one of the things that he was asked about was Chansi Stuckey and the decision to fire Chansi Stuckey. And here's Marcus Freeman's response to that.
I've had from the last time we spoke, it was 24 hours of deep thought and difficult conversations with a lot of players and a lot of coaches, regarding our overall performance at wideout. And I had to make a difficult decision. And I am truly, just thankful for Chansi and everything he's done and given to this program. And but we had to move forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Had to move forward, not overly revelatory there, Jess. So what'd you think?
I thought that was the nicest way. That was like the Marcus Freeman political cap of putting something that was really nasty about a week ago and making it look like it was, we decided it was time to let go. But there was much more deeper, intense conversations than what he led on. I think the thing I appreciate the most about this whole situation is that they didn't waste any time. They ripped the Band-Aid off. They knew it was a problem. They knew what was likely going to come after this, but I think realistically they got ahead. Because what did I talk about? They all of these guys are now in the portal. Notre Dame got that out of the way a week ago. They got that, the position group that was going to see the mass exodus, the wide receivers. They got rid of the wide receiver coach. And again, they knew what the ripple effect was going to be. And I think that the main thing is once they got rid of Stuckey, they were hoping that could be damage control for a couple guys. But that turned out to be a little bit too late. And again, I'm just glad that this Band-Aid is ripped off. The worst part of the offseason is over now, in my opinion. And I think we're going to get to the fun and exciting stuff of seeing what guys are going to come out of the portal at Notre Dame. But I get, if you're going to fire a guy the first day after the season, it is very clear that you guys are not on the same page. There was major issues, and going forward, in order for your team to be at its best, it was without him. So I'm just glad that they did it swiftly, and now it's it's all under the rug. It's over.
Yeah,
with.
look, there were a lot of criticisms of Brian Kelly. What was one of them? That he didn't move fast enough on stuff like this. And Marcus Freeman showed that he's not going to piddle around. Guy had 2 seasons and stuff came to a head and he moved on. And now look, there are a lot of people saying that he fired a scapegoat and kept Parker, who's the real problem. It's fair to have that opinion because none of us were there daily, so we can't say with 100% certainty. What we can say, though, is the wide receivers underperformed. We know that, right? Like there's no doubt about that. The wide receivers underperformed. We can say with pretty good certainty that during the season, the wide receivers were not coached well enough. We know that. It was there for all of us to see. We can also say with certainty that Chansi Stuckey was Tommy Rees's guy. He came to Notre Dame through his connection with John McNulty, who of course was here. And, he was a great recruiter, but we know for certain that he wasn't a good enough developer of the players on the field. Like we were talking about, to the off the field stuff, the relationships, how he treated players. We can't say with 100% certainty, again, because we weren't there. We rely on sources, and the thing about sources is, as much as, it's good to have them, you get information, they can still have their own agendas, and they do. Bill Curry, longtime college football coach, used to be on the Mike and Mike show all the time. He always used to say there are 3 sides to every story: yours, mine, and the stone cold truth. And, so there's always going to be 3 sides to all of this. We know the offense had its issues. It started with the development of the receivers, but they still set up a program record for most points, basically a modern record for most points scored over the course of the season, so Freeman makes the decision to fire Stuckey. He kept Al Golden last year. A lot of people didn't like that. Look how it turned out. Where would they be if Marcus Freeman had fired Al Golden last year? So you got to have a little bit of trust, I guess, with the guy at the top. He makes this move. Look at the current staff. D'La McCullough, Mike Mickens, probably the 2 guys who are great at both recruiting and development. He had worked with Mickens before. He hadn't worked with McCullough. They've both worked out, So at the end of the day, this all falls on Marcus Freeman. If it doesn't work out, it falls on him, and it very well could cost him his job. That's what it comes down to. That's what's at stake in all this. For everyone else, it's just, our enjoyment watching Notre Dame football, and you want him to succeed in all this. But literally, Marcus Freeman's job is on the line with every potential decision that he makes. So we'll see where it all goes. And I think you got to trust that he's made the decisions that are in everyone's best interest, including his own.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, I hadn't thought about it in that kind of lens. Marcus Freeman is the head guy. So if there's a problem, he's always the common denominator, right? And so Marcus Freeman isn't making this move. He's not making this move as swift as he is if he doesn't think that Stuckey was detrimental to himself and, more importantly, to the Notre Dame football team. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
So another kind of on adjacent to this, Freeman was also asked about the departures of Chris Tyree and Rico Flores Jr. and whether he would have liked to see those guys return next year.
When guys earn a degree and are seeking more playing time or a different opportunity, I'm supportive of that. I'm always disappointed when a guy leaves without his degree. And so that's really the situation with those 2.
Again, not a whole lot there, but I mean,
kind of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he basically said, if you've got your degree and there's a better opportunity for you, okay, then I'm good with that. If you don't have your degree, that's the one that he's hung up on a little bit, and that was obviously in reference to Rico Flores.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think, or do you know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't.
That's okay.
Do you think, or do you know if Lawrence Keys got his degree before he transferred out of Notre Dame?
Ooh, man, that's been too long ago at this point.
Because Chris Tyree reminds me a lot of Lawrence Keys. And Lawrence Keys went on to Tulane and became a really good wide receiver.
Played for him
and,
last year. Yeah.
and very productive for Pratt. And that's kind of where I see Chris Tyree. I think Chris Tyree needs to go because he wants to get drafted as an NFL wide receiver. And then that's his path to the NFL. He's got his degree. He's given his time to Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't utilize him how he should be because he could be a premier wide receiver, in my opinion. He could be a slot wide receiver that plays are designed around at other universities, and other universities would be very happy to have. So I get that. But if you're Rico Flores, it's just like, come on, man. You were here for 6 months.
Again, there was a Chansi Stuckey camp. There was a non-Chansi Stuckey camp. I think read into that what you will in terms of Rico Flores and the fact that Rico Flores was their leading wide receiver as a freshman this year. With Chris Tyree, in terms of his NFL future, what makes him so valuable is his versatility because he's got the return skills as well. He's definitely got speed. He's got running back in his background. Like, he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey, but couldn't you see him plugging into the San Francisco offense and just doing a million different things for the 40? I mean,
he's going to be a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions.
I shudder to think about, the Detroit Lions too. They talk about positionless foot. That's a great one right there. Like between like what they got with Jahmyr Gibbs and like you plug a Chris Tyree into something like that.
You got St. Brown on the outside.
Yep.
I think, he's gonna find his way. I guess what I'm getting at is Chris Tyree is gonna find a place that is gonna appreciate and love him some more. And I think we all want that in life is people who appreciate and love us for all that we can give. And I think it's gonna help him because I think he's gonna make a training camp and he's gonna end up playing in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too far on this. But Jonah, again, unless you were in the room, how do you know any of what you're talking about right now? I don't think it is. It's far more than just one guy. I'll just leave it at that. And we were talking. He was talking about Stuckey, saying Stuckey did nothing wrong. Again, none of us were in the room, and we just have, the information that we've got in front of us to go on. But since we weren't in the room. Look, it's bygones at this point. What's done is done. And again, I think it had far more to do with just one guy.
I mean, a wide receiver medically retired before the season even started. So, kind of look into that how much you want.
Right. I can tell you this. There's at least one guy who probably was going to leave if Stuckey had stayed, who is still on the team right now. So,
yep.
Again, take that for what you will. Oh, and by the way, Freeman did say that KK Smith, the other freshman who came to Notre Dame, he had a shoulder injury when he got to Notre Dame and really wasn't able to do much of anything all season long. He is practicing and he's going to be available for the bowl. And Deion Colsey, who played in Notre Dame's first 4 games of the season and then didn't play the last 8 with a knee injury, he's going to be available as well. So that's good news. So you get both of those guys back. So at least the depth. And of course you got Matt Salerno back. You hope that Jaden Thomas's hamstring is finally healthy. So there's going to be some numbers out there. Be curious to see what they're able to do with some of that in this bowl game.
I know a lot of people are going to make fun of me. I didn't realize El Paso was like in a tri-state area. You're on the border of like a different country, and you're on the border of.
It's not really tri-state. It's like duo
Delta.
state / like it's down there. That's right, down by old Juarez.
What's cool though is KK Smith is from Texas, so
yeah,
little homecoming party, right? Get some action. Maybe the family will make the trip out there. So. Again, cool to see a guy that we haven't really seen much from, and now it's like the perfect opportunity to say, hey, what do you got? What do you got going here?
Yeah, DK Colsey's going to prove our preseason predictions right, getting 500 in the bowl. He's going to go nuts. He's going to go nuts in the bowl. That's right. Okay, fill in the blank on this one. Florida State getting left out of the playoffs is blank.
Florida State getting left out of the playoffs is absolutely ridiculous. My final four, if I was the selection committee, would have been as followed. Number 1, Michigan. Number 2, Washington. Number 3, Florida State. Number 4, Texas. That would have been my final four. I got plenty of examples to back it up. I'll give you 2 just to be quick. If this was, and I think
I was ready for you to break out.
Actually, I got 3 examples, and I'll start with the first one. Ohio State won a national championship with 12 gauge Cardale Jones as the quarterback. That was a third-string quarterback. No one saw that coming. My second example would be if roles were reversed and this was an Alabama team, would they be left out of the playoff? The answer would be absolutely no. My third example would be the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with backup quarterbacks. Do you think that the Eagles should have just been discontinued from the Super Bowl?
No playoffs. That's right.
Just because, you know what I mean? They should have been not allowed into the playoffs. And even when they were winning playoff games, we're not going to let you go to the Super Bowl because, that's the Patriots and that's Tom Brady. And we know what he is and we know how much better they are than you. I mean, come on. I could go into more examples, but those are just the 3 that I had loaded up and ready.
Frank Reich led the comeback, the greatest comeback in playoff history. Bills over the Oilers, and I believe it was the 93 playoffs when Jim Kelly was hurt in the second half. I mean, they didn't just stop the game because the backup quarterback was in there. Like Caleb Williams, Safe Space, thanks for the super chat, said if Florida State and Clemson switched seasons this year, Clemson was 13-0 but lost their quarterback. Would they have been gotten left? Would they have still gotten in based off recent history? I was going to bring this up as part of what I was going to say. I absolutely don't think this. So much of this has to do with reputation and the fact that Florida State hasn't been in this situation definitely in the playoff version of this. The last time they were in the playoff was the first year first year of the playoff coming off their BCS championship. I don't think Clemson would have been left off because so much of this has to do with recency bias and history. Even though these committees are trying to tell you that it doesn't have anything to do with it, I just don't buy it. And I don't think Clemson would have got left out. I don't think Alabama would have got left out. I don't think Georgia would have been left out in this same situation. You can go on and on down the list, and it's just ridiculous. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised, but it's just there's an old reggae song. The system is a fraud, and that's what this system is a fraud. They're putting these humans in here as if these people, like some of them pay close attention to football, some of them don't, and it's
on this point.
Did
you show
up for the party on Saturdays?
The Mike Leach comment when he was at Washington State. Have you seen that one floating around?
Yes.
I wish we had that one queued up. He's like, we got a committee because this country loves committees,
right?
And we're asking this committee to make the decision about the best 4 teams. Yet none of these committee members know or follow football as intense as the rest of us. So, like you said, it's ridiculous. And I've said it from the start. You can't punish a team for what you think is going to happen. You can only reward them for what they have done. Florida State went 13-0. They're a Power 5 conference champion. They had harder out of conference schedules than most of the SEC. They beat a common opponent in Louisville without their quarterback better than some of those teams did.
With their third-string quarterback. That's right.
Come on.
The SEC's best out-of-conference win this season was when Kentucky beat Louisville at the end of the regular season, and then Florida State turns around and beats that same Louisville team with their third-string freshman quarterback.
By a better margin.
Right. And
after Alabama just struggled to beat Auburn, it's just like, come on.
If Florida State is so bad without Jordan Travis, then why were they still ranked 5th in the playoff rankings when it was all said and done?
Oh, a good point I saw today was too. I'm glad that you said that. This just means that Jordan Travis has to win the Heisman, right?
I guess so. If he's that valuable.
And your justification is you can't let a team in because of quarterback play, yet that quarterback guided them to what, like an 11.5 record, 12-0 record?
Right.
then he's got to be the Heisman because he means that much. That team is that bad without him. He's got to win the Heisman.
Absolutely.
I thought that was great. When I saw that, I was like, I got to save that one for later.
Yeah. And, in one breath, you've got Boo Corrigan, the committee chair, saying, well, Florida State's winning didn't matter. And then in the next breath, he's saying that Liberty, well, they just kept on winning, and so even though they played no Power 5 teams, it warrants New Year's 6 inclusion, and just about everything else has been said on this. And I'll just leave it at this. Boo Corrigan, as some people know, he grew up here in South Bend. Gene Corrigan's son, went to St. Joseph High School. He's a Notre Dame graduate. He's the athletic director at NC State. He was an associate athletic director under Kevin White before he became the athletic director at Army. The most significant coaching hire, other than Jeff Monken at Army, that he probably had to make, when he was the baseball, he was assigned to baseball when he was an associate athletic director here at Notre Dame. And so when Palmineri leaves for LSU in 2006, who's in charge of the search process to find the replacement for Palmineri? It's Boo Corrigan. And he takes a big swing. He goes after Pat Casey, who was at the time the defending national champion at Oregon State, devout Catholic, all that stuff. They take a swing. Pat Casey stays at Oregon State, wins a couple more national championships ultimately. So who do they go from? From Pat Casey, they go to Dave Schrag, who generally regarded as a really good guy, Dave Schrag, but the record shows in 3+ decades as a Division I college baseball coach, he is sub 500. Or I think maybe he might have been a little over 500 the course of his career, one NCAA tournament. But that's where they went from that to that, and really started the downfall of Notre Dame baseball over the next, 15, 16 years until it was resuscitated by Link Jarrett a couple of years ago. And that was Boo Corrigan's hire. And, I've talked about this before, how Dave Schrag had an assistant coach on his staff who was sent out to go recruit a guy at an event in the summer at a baseball showcase. He was given the guy's name, said, go look at this guy, sign him, if he's good. So he goes and looks at this guy. We'll call him Joe Smith. So he goes and he sees a guy named Joe Smith, but as it turned out, it wasn't the Joe Smith that he was supposed to see, but he signed the guy. And they didn't find out that it was the wrong Joe Smith until the wrong Joe Smith showed up on campus to go to class in the fall. And they're like, well, you're not Joe Smith. Yeah, I'm Joe Smith. He signed the wrong guy on Dave Schrag's watch. And that was a Boo Corrigan hire. That's who Boo Corrigan hired to replace Palmineri at Notre Dame. So don't tell me that I'm supposed to trust anything that Boo Corrigan says or does when it comes to anything. The guy is where he is because of the name that he's got, the last name that he's got. His brother's a hell of a lacrosse coach, and he proved that by winning a national championship last year. But don't tell me anything about what Boo Corrigan is supposed to know about anything. So after Friday's Pac-12 championship game, Robert Griffin III tweeted, quote, "If we're being real, both Washington and Oregon should be in the playoff," end quote. Do you buy it or sell it?
I sell that. I think RG3 these days, he's just joined the hot take stuff. He wants people to talk about him. I mean, this is the guy who was still trying to, make a case that he could be the quarterback for the Browns and he could be the quarterback for the Jets and, all of these things. There's nothing that proved to me that Oregon, you can't lose to the same team twice and say that you deserve to be in the playoff unless I might give this comment more credit if Washington somehow goes on to win the national championship, right? Like that's the only way, in my opinion, that this comment becomes relevant. But I'm getting real sick and tired of RG3 and Emmanuel Acho and those kind of guys, because it just feels like they just say stupid, like they say more stupid stuff than actual intelligent stuff recently. Right. It's just like, what do what are you actually doing? Is this fake or real? Because your job, in my opinion, is to be an honest and true analyst. And so when you say stuff like this, I don't even know if I can trust what you're saying about the other things anymore. So I'm not buying it at all.
Is it pure stupidity, or is it just like we're having takes for the sake of having takes? I mean, the same teams played twice, and the same team won both times. And I'm sorry, that's part of what these games are supposed to be for, to, one, to make money for the conferences, but two, to eliminate somebody. And I'm sorry, like, Oregon was a good team, but if they couldn't even split with Washington, then no, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They lost to Washington both times. They both ended up being close games, but it's just you're not a serious person if, like, you're putting this out there in the world. Just like you said, like, how can I take anything you say seriously if this is what you're putting out there, Robert Griffin? I'm sorry. I can't take it.
Side note, have you listened to, I doubt you have, but we watch Browns games a lot in this household because
I'm sure you do.
Naomi likes to stay relevant because she works with a lot of, older age men, and a lot of her customers talk about football. So she likes to stay in the now. And she's actually having some customers come in for the Browns and Bears game in the next couple of weeks. But anyways, Mark Sanchez has been doing some NFL games recently, and I don't know if you've caught any of that, but he is just some of the times I'm like, I'm listening to you, Mr. Butt Fumble. Like, you are criticizing quarterbacks about bad turnovers and, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is who I'm listening to right now, but
Right.
He has been bad in the booth, and that's all I was getting at. But it comes back to the, like, this is who I'm listening to about certain things. Mark Sanchez talking about bad quarterback play in the NFL.
What, and like 3 weeks ago, Robert Griffin III was, like, promoting himself to be the Jets, next quarterback. And yeah,
I will say
there's
DK,
a lack of quality representation, I think, in the booth when it comes to solid takes.
Yes. DK, I will give you that. Mark Sanchez's flow it might be better than when he was in his prime. It is. He kind of looks like, in my opinion, he looks like Vinny Chase off of Entourage. Kind of.
You know who's good? You know who's really good that, like, I wasn't sure how it was going to go is Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Matt Ryan you've seen.
I think I caught one Matt Ryan game.
For a guy coming straight off the field and into the booth, and like he's stuck with I think he said Andrew Catalan, like, solid play-by-play guy, and Tiki Barber. It was Tiki Barber. It's a 3-man booth. Yeah, I mean, Tiki's not bad. Tiki's career hasn't gone the way that I thought it would when he left the Giants several years ago. I think he thought that he was going to be a star by now. And I mean, he's got jobs, he's got national jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, Matt Ryan's been really, really good. And I'm surprised that, like, he hasn't had an opportunity maybe to go to a higher booth. Maybe he didn't get that opportunity because he was still kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of playing if another opportunity had come up. So they didn't want to give him too big a booth. But I'd be surprised if he's not in a higher booth next year.
It was funny because the entire time Sanchez, and I can't remember who he does the game with, but the entire time the guy who was doing the game with had to refrain from saying these old quarterbacks because it was Matt Stafford and Joe Flacco, because Sanchez came in the same year Stafford came in. And so, and I'm pretty sure it was very similar years to Flacco as well. And so every time you'd say, oh, these old quarterbacks, he'd be like, oh, well, just kidding, because that means I'm calling Mark old.
But, and you know who got some criticism last week because he filled in for Chris Collinsworth is our old buddy, the Ginger, Jason Garrett,
baby.
He got in an NFL booth with a little bit more exposure, and I heard Bill Simmons, ripping him last week, and like,
I actually thought he wasn't as bad as what he did in the Notre Dame games.
There's just, and I think Simmons said this, he brought up it's just like all these cliches. Like, he doesn't give you succinct, true analysis. It's just a bunch of, if they, it's just a bunch of cliches that he's out there spewing, because I think he got so used to, generic coaches speak when he was the head coach of the Cowboys, and he never really said anything in front of the microphones. And that's really who he is as a broadcaster so far as well. He's not giving you any true analysis. He's just kind of giving you, these little one lines, nothing deep.
Michael Hahn really enjoyed your the ginger, but that's deep rooted from a caller that always calls into Dan Patrick's show when Jason Garrett was the head coach, and he would just rant and rant, and all he wouldn't even call Jason Garrett by name. It was just the ginger with a lot of other explicitives kind of following coming before.
So here's what a 12-team college football playoff format would have looked like this year. Maybe we should have done a chart on this and put it up on the screen, but it would have been number 8 Oregon versus number 9 Missouri, with the winner to play number 1 Michigan. Number 5 Florida State versus number 12 Liberty, the winner to take on number 4 Alabama. Number 7 Ohio State versus number 10 Penn State, so you'd get a Big Ten rematch there, the winner against number 2 Washington. And then number 6, Georgia against number 11, Ole Miss, with the winner against number 3, Texas. Scale of 1 to 10, how much does that get you excited for the 12-team playoff?
That gets me really excited because I feel like all of our, issues and complaints are answered. And I feel like, I think that the counter argument would be, well, we're just going to want to see more teams and more teams and more teams. And we're going to want more expansion. I don't think so. I think it comes to a point where I think that is a good number because you are drawing the line of where the good teams are in college football. And I think you could become more oversaturated by, potential expansion. I think that playoff and the number that they are going to settle on is just the right amount to have the best pool of college programs playing, but also allowing for the Florida States, the Liberties, the question marks to be able to play out. And so there's no more question marks. There's no more, judgment calls or, essentially, again, ambiguity of who should be let in and who shouldn't be. And so I think that this is, again, the perfect number to draw the line in the sand and say, we feel really good about this group of teams of being the representation of the best, college football that's being played in the country. Now let's let them settle it out and determine if we might have made a mistake of, potentially ranking a team too high, too low, not giving them enough credit, too much credit. I think it's going to be the perfect cocktail of teams playing.
The only thing I don't like about this, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's the teams that happen to be ranked. I'm just talking about from a pure fun / excitement standpoint. All those first round games, of course, are going to be played on campus sites. So for example, you got Ohio State versus Penn State, 2 cold weather teams playing against each other. You don't have Ohio State versus Ole Miss, for example, where maybe Ohio State would have been hosting a Southern team, get them up there in that cold weather, maybe a little snow falling and that kind of stuff. That's part of what I want to see is some of these Southern teams having to travel north a little bit. So that would make it fun as well. I'm still a solid 8-9 on this because I love the fact that all these games are going to matter. And it's just going to make it, to me, it's going to make it so much more interesting than what it is. And you're still going to have some discussions and debates with who's the 12 team, who's the 13, 14, the debate is just going to slide from 4, 5, 6, down to 11, 12, 13, 14, and who's getting in and who's not with the cutoff and all that different kind of stuff. But Keith Wigan says, Penn State is no way a top 10 team. I mean, this is Penn State. Over the last 10 years, Penn State would have been the most common, at-large team in a 12-team field because they lose, they beat Michigan a couple of different times, but they lose to Michigan and Ohio State every year. And so they've got 2 quality losses. Those are their only losses. And they're going to be sitting there right in that range. Penn State is most likely going to be consistently in. And you remember the whole thing when the Big Ten, they did that, they let the individual schools decide which of the rivalry games do you want to keep going forward, with the expansion and when we, redo the schedules and all that stuff. Penn State didn't want any permanent opponents. And so what that means, like, who can blame them? Because now they're not going to have Penn State and Ohio State on their schedule every year. So they're probably going to end up with an even higher ranking going forward because of that. Now they're going to, they're going to get, USC and Oregon, Washington, those are going to be part of the mix as well. But Penn State's going to be in there. Penn State's going to be a pretty consistent.
Bring up that Irish Steel
playoff
63 comment, not the last one, the one above it.
The Big Ten comment?
Yes.
This one?
Yes.
The Big Ten actually sucks.
Scream it from your rooftops, baby. Penn State is what Penn State would have consistently got in every year, and Penn State consistently would have been the first team out every year. Penn State and the rest of the Big Ten West and everyone not named Ohio State and Michigan, fraudulent, garbage. The Big Ten as a whole is a joke outside of two programs, and you can maybe say 2.5, 3, depending on what year it is between Penn State and Michigan State if they want to show up again. But Big Ten sucks, in my opinion. It's crappy football. It's overrated. And Michigan and Ohio State get rewarded for playing no one tough.
There's consistently been 3 good teams in the whole conference, right?
Yeah.
Well, not even I guess Michigan State in place of Michigan there for a while. Now Michigan has taken Michigan State's place. Michigan State has fallen off. Penn State has always been and also ran kind of, again, sitting in that number 2, number 3 spot consistently behind Ohio State. But we're probably going to end up eating our words, because are you calling a Michigan loss to Alabama right now? Is that what
Alabama's winning it all?
I'm not going to be surprised at all if Alabama does. We've been sitting here talking about a down year for Alabama, all this crappy quarterbacks, for half the season. And look at where Alabama is right now, just because the devil, Nick Saban, he willed them into that spot, and there they are. They're back in the mix again. So I'm not going to be shocked at all.
When does Bama perform its best? When you bet against them, when they're the underdog. And I made good money on Alabama winning that SEC championship. I knew it was coming. My money knew it was coming. You don't bet on Nick Saban as an underdog when he needs it the most.
And that's, again, with this 12-team format, like, they're going to be right in that mix as long as Nick Saban is there every year. They don't even have to be a top 4 team anymore.
The Big Ten West, since the conference realignment, when they split to East and West divisions, 0-10 in the Big Ten championship. That's all you need to know about the Big Ten. And
I couldn't believe those boobs on game day that actually picked Iowa to win. Like,
that was a joke. They had to be trolling. They had to be.
We're supposed to take you seriously when you're literally picking Iowa to beat Michigan on national TV. Come on, we can't take that seriously. Give me a break. Fill in the blank. What happened to Florida State makes you feel blank about Notre Dame ever being in a conference?
This is I said this to someone the other day. I was like, Notre Dame being in a conference is like the case for Notre Dame being in a conference is even more irrelevant now, because what did a conference do for Florida State in this situation? They did everything that they were supposed to. They were a Power 5. They were in a Power 5 conference. They won a Power 5 conference championship. They scheduled 2 tough out of conference opponents. They did everything you're supposed to, and it didn't do anything for them. So if I'm Notre Dame, I say, screw you guys. I'm taking my money, because this was a part of the other conversation that we had, is all this conference realignment is just for the money. And that's all it is. And so if Notre Dame's getting its money without being in the conference, and they're on a national television, coast to coast 6 times a year, guaranteed, they're going to do it every time. And so what I'll say about this is there's universities who need a conference, and there's universities that have proven that they don't need a conference, and Notre Dame has done that. It's about the money. Notre Dame's got its money elsewhere, and they don't need a conference to pay its bills.
Yeah. Everyone who's in a conference has been screaming at Notre Dame that they need to be in a conference. You need to play in these conference championship games. You're hurting yourself by not being in the conference because of blah, 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 blah. And as I have said all along, what problem does Notre Dame being in a conference solve? It solves no problems. It solves no problems at all. Because if Notre Dame is 12-0 next year, they're not missing the play. I mean, they're definitely not missing the playoff at 12-0 in a 12-team format. They were not going to miss the playoff 12-0 if they, in a 4-team format. They were not going to miss it. And being in a conference solves no problems for anybody. Notre Dame's got their own TV contract. They've got access to the playoff. They don't need to be in the conference, and they never need to be in a conference. The only problem it solves is like for the people who still aren't happy. It's like, oh, we got to play Wake Forest and we got to play Boston College and these crappy ACC teams. Would you rather see them play them and win 99% of the time, or would you rather see them play
Michigan
a tougher regular season and have a chance of losing more and maybe missing out on the playoff as a result? Get into the playoff, and then your loss comes in the playoff if you happen to lose, or you've got a chance to win a national championship. They've got a better chance at winning a national championship, staying independent, and doing exactly what they're doing right now.
I mean, Notre Dame stuck its neck out to get 2 programs into the ACC, help the ACC out. And what did the ACC do come bowl time? They were selfish. They didn't do any. The ACC did nothing to help Notre Dame in this bowl selection. They knew that Notre Dame wants, if we put an actual affiliated team in there, they're going to make us the money. But Notre Dame does so much more outside of, being in the ACC for football, yet they don't give a crap.
Notre Dame props the ACC's TV contract up. And, literally, if it wasn't for Notre Dame, there wouldn't be an ACC network. And don't forget, we didn't even mention this when we were talking about the Florida State thing, but the ACC killed itself with this whole stupid alliance a couple of years back. You remember, they got so upset, and there was this alliance with the Pac-12 and in the Big Ten, and in the end, the Big Ten did an end around and expanded by bringing in USC and UCLA, and they were supposed to be helping each other out, and they voted not to expand the college football playoff a year early. This could have been the first year of the 12-team format, but those 3 voted not to let that happen. And so as a result, Florida State sitting on the outside looking in. If they hadn't formed that silly alliance and, tried to do whatever they were supposed to do with it, then you'd have a 12-team playoff this year, and Florida State would be in. And look at where it got everybody. It got Florida State out of the playoff, and the Pac-12 just played its last game Friday night, Washington and Oregon in the conference championship game. So
let me I want to flip a little Florida State, the last Florida State comments on you, and I think we'll be done here. But my question to you, if Florida State beats 2-time defending champ Georgia, 29 straight win Georgia before Alabama in the SEC championship game, and improved to 14-0.
You're gonna have to start over. You're gonna have to start over. I meant, that's a lot of information. Okay, so start over. Okay.
If Florida State beats Georgia, the 2-time defending national champ, a team that just played in the SEC championship and had 29 straight wins, and they improved to 14-0, are you planting your flag in the ground as the national champion? Are you claiming the national championship?
If UCF can do it, I'm doing it if I'm Florida State. Hell yeah. No doubt.
I think you have to.
Absolutely.
Someone said, if FC beats Georgia, Texas, and win this. Oh my gosh. I will give you your royalties, Bryce. I'm sorry. I did not see that
Did you cherry pick someone's comments from earlier?
I guess I did.
I did. Stuff.
But I mean, 14-0, baby, and I'm beating the 2-time defending champ. I'm putting my flag in the ground. We're the champions.
TD4ND says, dumb question. Will conference contracts with TV networks influence bowl selections in the future? Do they influence it now? I mean, I doubt there's much influence. Otherwise, Notre Dame would probably have been playing in one of the other bowls because most of them are on ESPN. And the Sun Bowl, for example, is CBS. It's one of the few bowl games that CBS gets. So I doubt that there's much influence now. I wouldn't think that there'll be much influence going forward because, the college football playoff is still potentially looking at, the TV contract is going to be coming up. And is everything going to stay with Disney/ESPN, or will they parse it out? There's been talks that like Amazon could get involved with some of the first round games. And there's been talks before about Fox getting in on it. And I do think that Fox should be in on it because they're doing a better job, in the last few years with the broadcasting of football. I think that they, I wouldn't object to altering every other year, just like the Super Bowl rotates around networks, like rotating back and forth between Fox and ESPN doing the championship, and or semifinals. They've obviously got to pay the money to do that. They're not just going to give it to them, but the answer to that question is no. I don't think that the Bulls right now have any influence over that. Paul, thanks for the super chat. Tyler Buchner coming back for lacrosse football walk-on if you're Marcus Freeman. My short answer is no. I think that ship has sailed. Tyler Buchner had his opportunity. He decided to go to Alabama, and that's not the route that I would go if I were Marcus Freeman.
Really sad situation.
Yeah, especially considering the direction, that it sounds like they're going to be going and what they're doing with quarterback going forward. Tyler Buchner could have been the starting quarterback next year, potentially.
Yeah. I think if Tyler Buchner stays, he has a 50-50 shot at being the starting quarterback next season. It's really unfortunate that Tommy Rees convinced him to go to Alabama because I think it ultimately ended his college football career. And I'll leave that at that. But hypothetically, one fun thing to see would be a Riley Leonard and Tyler Buchner, like a little package, Tyler Buchner is kind of like your leading back, or like maybe it's a wildcat where you don't even know who's getting the ball. Like that would be kind of fun to watch. I would say the only way I see Tyler Buchner playing again is if he's like a H back or like a tight end or something. I think his days of being a college quarterback are done. But I think if you truly do it, that's what I mean. And he's got the body and frame to do it. So I think if he really, really, really wanted to play football, his role on the team would be like a tight end. And that, again, that would be all assuming that Marcus Freeman would want him back on the team, or that he would have a role that would fit on the team.
Yeah. Again, I don't see it.
But I think him coming back to Notre Dame for lacrosse ultimately shows his regret. And I think he loved his time at Notre Dame.
Yeah, for sure. Former James Madison head coach Curt Cignetti was introduced as the new head coach at Indiana over the weekend. He addressed the IU faithful at a basketball game and said, "Purdue sucks. So does Michigan and Ohio State." So rate his introduction on a scale of 1 to 10.
His introduction is a 10 out of 10. His willingness to take an IU football job is a 2 out of 10. I think he should have waited a little bit. I think there were better positions to be in, and I think Indiana football is a tough coaching position to be in.
Tough road. Especially with the conference expanding now.
I think he could have done himself some favors by maybe seeing what other jobs were out there. But to each their own, he took his opportunity.
I mean, if I'm being honest, the Big 12 is the place to be right now.
Yeah.
Like I know that, like the Houston job, I think just got filled, but that would have been the way to go, I think. But, this is a 10 out of 10 to me, because if you're a political candidate, you kiss babies, on the campaign trail, and you pander to your base as much as possible. And this is what a college football coach does. You pander to your base. And, Cignetti was out there. He spoke the language of the Hoosiers, and he didn't even have to, do a fake accent to do it. So I thought it was great. He had a lot of fun with it. Of course, the IU people went nuts. All he had to do was say Purdue sucks.
Great fan base.
That's right. He got them all lathered up and ready to go down there. So good luck to him, man, because, again, that is not an easy place. That is not an easy place to win football games.
How about good old Chuck Martin beating out Toledo for his second MAC championship this past weekend?
Yeah. Is he going to be a candidate?
I think so. I think his name is going to start popping up a little bit more. But
yep. We're almost done. I told DK.
Good thing DK stuck around.
I know. Told DK we were going to be here for a while in rapid fire. Fill in the blank. 49ers pounding the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly is blank.
It's just the beginning. Dallas is next. You're coming to Jerry World. You got Dak hot right now. Dak for MVP. It's gonna be worse what the Cowboys are gonna do to the Eagles. They're gonna wish they never came to Dallas.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. I just think that it's a sign that the 49ers are probably going to end up winning the NFC.
And honestly,
year.
it shows the difference between the 49ers and the rest of the
Yeah.
NFC.
When the 49ers are healthy, it's them. And I mean, one of these two teams are probably winning the Super Bowl. And maybe this gives the 49ers a chance to host the NFC Championship game. But it was pretty impressive with what they were able to do. And you're right, we got Eagles Cowboys Part 2 coming up this weekend. I'm more excited for it now than I was a couple of weeks ago.
I had to record the game and watch the end of it. What was the most impressive part, in my opinion, is the 49ers actually absolutely came into Philadelphia's home and beat the crap out of them. They embarrassed them at home. And Philly's a good team at home. And for everyone that doubted, the 49ers when Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel were hurt, I think this shows the importance of having Deebo Samuel back on offense. He's a yak god. I don't think I've ever seen someone get more yards after catch than Deebo Samuel. It elevates Brock Purdy's game tremendously. It makes
We lost you there. You're I don't know if you can hear me, but we can't hear you. But that little stunt you did with your microphone cost you some air quality there.
I'm back.
Okay.
Baby.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I just think the 49ers are a juggernaut. And I think if you're anyone else in the NFC, really in the NFL, you should be afraid. I don't know if I've seen anyone in the AFC either that really stacks up with them as well.
Yep. DK, I think DK is still in the house. He is. He says Lions, Browns, Super Bowl. DK, again, you were concerned that we started rapid fire too early. We have just gone almost a full hour with rapid fire alone. So
I think everyone was happy my mic went out. I'm back.
I felt like we delivered with some quality rapid fire tonight. Anthony says that Cignetti was a great hire for IU. I don't doubt that. He's great for IU. I don't know that IU is great for him because it's just such a tough place to play. That's what it comes down to for me. And Andre can't wait till January to see the new players on campus. Who do you want to see? I want to see a lot of them on campus, actually. But
give me some
wide receivers and Carr probably at the top of the list right now. Oh, DK throwing this back at us. Brian and Sean go 6 hours. Come on. We're just talking about rapid fire. This is probably a record for rapid fire, a full hour tonight. A non-Friday rapid fire show. Rapid fire went an hour tonight because we had such good stuff. So appreciate you being here tonight. Fun as always. Jesse, enjoy it. Let's just end with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's all you fans when we start talking about the Cowboys. That's going to be Sirianni again this week. It's rivalry week, baby. Sorry you don't have a rivalry to get fired up like I do.
Tommy Gunn's chiming back in. Are we even capable of a BD/SD type show? Come on, man. That's just not fair. That's congratulations on winning a state championship, I guess. Whatever. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.